So it's 2A Tuesday. Let's do some gun stuff. Now we saw the President Joe Biden from the perch of his Delaware beach out. Who am I kidding? He had no idea this was tweeted from his account. One of his staffers, who likely also knows probably nothing about guns, tweeted this yesterday from Joe Biden's account. It is within Congress's power to require safe storage of firearms, require background checks for all gun sales, eliminate gun manufacturers' immunity from liability, and ban assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. And this should happen without delay. Sure, Mr. Staffer, on Joe Biden's account. Joining me now to break this all down, Cam Edwards, host of the fantastic podcast Bearing Arms and Second Amendment Advocate. All right, Cam, the problem with these people who write these mythical gun laws is they don't know anything about guns, which allowed some of these loopholes in the first place that they're now trying to close that wouldn't even stop the crimes they're intending to stop.
No, that's exactly right, Carl. And listen, first, I think we need to ask Joe Biden to define what an assault weapon actually is, because his ATF director, Steve Dettelbach, couldn't do so today. So what guns are we talking about? Exactly. David Chipman, Joe Biden's first nominee. The honest answer is the real definition of assault weapon is a gun that somebody wants to ban. Right. And today we might be talking about centerfire semi-automatic rifles. Tomorrow it might be common non-lethal pistols. It all depends on who you're talking to. But you're exactly right when you talk about how these laws would work in practice. So let's talk about a federal safe storage law, for example. Look, as a gun owner, I absolutely believe that if you have young kids in the home, if you have teenagers and, they've got their friends coming in, if you can't be sure that that firearm is not going to be accessible to those who shouldn't have access to it, lock it up.
Sure.
But who on earth is going to enforce a federal safe storage law? The ATF, the DOJ, how are they going to proactively do that? How's that going to prevent any kind of tragedy? Well, at best, this would provide a federal charge after a tragedy has occurred. So why are we wasting our time? Because Democrats are so soft on crime, Carl. Are they actually going to prosecute a charge like that?
Well, against you and I, they will. We're conservatives, of course. But, Cam, the other thing, too, is like, look, living in Connecticut, you can't leave your gun in your car. So if I go to a place like a post office or a bank, I can't carry my gun out in public. I have to plan that far ahead. So it kind of like infringes on my right to keep and bear. I think that's written somewhere. But here's what a guest on MSNBC claims the reason the Second Amendment was created.
The Second Amendment was meant to prevent slave insurrections and slave rebellions. That is why people are losing nothing. There was no individual right. That's what it was really about. They didn't want to give up their arms to the state to fight the British because they needed to keep arms, in the words of Patrick Henry, to fight against our insurrections on the plantation.
Cam, one of the most historically illiterate interpretations of the Second Amendment, I think, ever. But what is this guy talking about?
Honestly, Carl, I don't know. Look, it may be true that in southern states that was an argument, right, for why you needed a militia. But that doesn't explain why states like New Hampshire and Pennsylvania, where slavery was already on the way out and frankly was never that firmly established to begin with, were some of the strongest proponents for an individual right to keep and bear arms. The 1776 Pennsylvania Constitution, for example, talked about the right of the people to keep and bear arms in defense of themselves and the state. So this was not, look, were there slave owners who wanted to have guns to put down slave interactions? I'm sure that there were. But you know what? We're talking about gun control laws at that point, Carl. We're talking about depriving people of the means of self-defense, right? And the story of the Second Amendment, quite frankly, over the centuries that this country's been in existence, is the story of more Americans gaining access to their right to keep and bear arms in self-defense. And the role that played in the civil rights movement in the mid-1950s and 60s is absolutely remarkable.
Well, Cam, I think it's ironic to note, and we have the headlines right here that shows that black Americans are actually the fastest growing demographic of gun owners right now. You can see even NPR, Bloomberg, and the Washington Post, of all liberal-leaning networks, they put that one out. Real quick, 30 seconds left. The ATF pistol brace. If you own one of these, you got to go register it as of now.
Yeah, absolutely. If not, you could, again, be looking at federal felony charges for possessing a unregistered short-barreled rifle. This is being challenged in court, and I hope that we get an injunction granted before this goes into effect. But you're right. This is something that every gun owner should be wary of right now.
Yeah, this is real bad. I'm going to hold out to the last minute on mine. Excuse me, Cam Edwards, appreciate you joining us.
Absolutely, Carl. Thank you.